Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Nick, your host of On the Scene with Martini. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget, you are the scene.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Nick on the scene with Martini. Today I'm here with Gary from Crime and Stereo and NEKS. How are you doing, Gary? Of
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
course, I appreciate you coming on. I guess we'll jump right into it and just kind of go, like your inspiration and your gateway into music.
Okay, that's a good like into like hardcore and like that kind of music specifically.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in Long Island, you kind of have a head start compared to other areas in terms of heavier music. So I figured that'd be a good start point for you.
Yeah, well, actually, so it was almost like I mean, I'm sure it would have happened eventually, but it kind of like stumbled on, Long Island hardcore by accident. If I remember the day very well. My childhood best friend, still very, very close friend, and I were riding bikes around in Smithtown and heard some loud music and saw some people standing around outside a garage when we were like 15 or 16 and kind of just like, what's this? And rolled up and it was a Long Island hardcore show. Uh and one of the bands playing was the Backup Plan. And I mean, to this day, they're still one of my favorite bands on the planet. I'm sure you're familiar with them. But that, yeah, and then kind of bought a few CDs and like whatever demo samplers. I think I got the Backup Plan Subterfuge split and at that show and some flyers for other shows, and then we just started going to whatever shows we could get to before we could drive, and then like a year later we started driving and just going to whatever shows we could around Long Island.
When you were at that age, were you already playing guitar at all?
Yes, but like pretty shittily.
Yeah.
And like we were just starting our first, bands, but it was kind of, seeing all that was kind of the inspiration for getting into it all. Um, and so, I started my first like, I played shows with my first real band probably not until I was like 19, 18 or 19. The drummer of my first band was actually Brendan from Incendiary.
Oh, okay.
Like we had our first two bands were together, but and yeah, I just started playing out from there. And then like I would say my second band was my first like real band, and then Crime and Stereo was the third band I played in.
Were you doing heavy music then since the beginning?
Yeah, I would say my first two bands were definitely like hardcore punk bands. Influenced by a lot of the stuff that was going on Long Island at the time. Uh, One of them was called Up the Fury, and that record does exist in the world if you ever wanted to check it out.
Hmm.
I think it is pretty cool for, 20 years ago,
Yeah.
more than that, I guess, at this point, 20 something years ago.
Were were
But
you finding so like when you're starting like that earlier band with Brendan, were you putting out the music because now you are a producer, mixer, or did you kind of have help at that point doing it?
back then, those first two bands recorded everything with Phil Latterman at the Hobo House, which was like a spot back then that so many Long Island bands probably more than half the bands in the scene at that point were recording with Phil. In the basement bedroom that he lived in, and also through shows in. That place was pretty iconic, and I wouldn't be surprised if he still lives there, to be honest with you.
Was there any reason why it was called the Hobo House, or is that just like a did he call it that, or
That was just the house name. I don't know the story behind it, but like that's what it was built on at shows, for shows and stuff.
yeah?
And that's what everyone knew it as. I'm sure there is an answer to that. I just don't
Yeah,
know it.
that's fair. I feel like the answer is either really good or just like really simple. And Phil was just like, it's just the hobo house because I have random guys living in it or
Yeah.
whatever.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was something along the lines of that, taking in strays and whatnot.
So, well, I guess we'll start with Crime and Stereo because that was like I would say your first band that like really blew off and took off. You guys have a pretty good fan base that still to this day sticks with you guys. When you joined in 2006, what was it like kind of stepping into like or I guess fulfilling a role that was kind of previously filled already?
Scary, I guess, because it was the first time I was ever doing in a band that wasn't like a thing I had started, and having to learn all the songs relatively quickly. I tried out for the band, and a week later, I was playing my first show with them at a sold out House of Blues Chicago opening for Glassjaw. And so it was also the biggest crowd I had ever, stood in front of, and
Yeah, that's a pretty big
playing a
show.
bunch of new playing a bunch of new songs, and that, not new songs. Like I had listened to the band a ton, but I had tried out basically a week prior, and yeah, it was crazy, you know, all that kind of happening in such a short period of time.
So when you say like going to new songs, it was like that first album, the Explosives and the Will to Use Them, essentially, and then some like EP and like singles and stuff. Because
So the Trouble Stateside was end of 2006. So Trouble
okay,
Stateside was out.
okay,
Um and we were playing mostly songs from that on those first shows, as well as some other stuff. But um yeah, it was very heavily Trouble Stateside leaning sets at that time frame. Um I would say in the 20 years I've been in the band, we've probably only played half of Explosives ever altogether.
like live or just in general, like practicing stuff too. Like after 2006, you
Both.
guys went, oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah, like both. There are certain songs we never even, rehearsed, because at that point it was we'd kind of moved into stateside and then started on Dead.
Yeah. So for Dead, then that's 2007. You guys were putting out like a lot of albums at that point, like 2007 to 2010 area. But for Dead, were all those songs new or like since like you've been on, or were they like kind of like half of it was from stuff that didn't make it from the Troubled State side? Do you know what I mean? Like, did you have a lot of
Um,
like influence in terms of like writing your riffs and
no, to be honest, at that time I was like very hands off with the creative end of the band. I was like mostly, you know, just live
playing?
member.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I wouldn't, Alex has always been the main songwriter, and they had a thing going at that time, and there was kind of a system, and I was still playing in other bands, and just, until the last, until like the new record, I mostly, kept out of the creative parts of the band. I was just, in the band playing guitar, and uh for a lot of years I kind of handled all the business shit for the band as well, especially after Mike Musili left the band. That he kind of dealt with everything administrative, and then when he left there was a serious gap in dealing with that stuff, so I kind of took over that end of things.
Did you have experience then? Well, I guess not at that level in terms of crime and stereo, but experience like when you say administrative, do you mean like PR and booking and playing certain shows and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
before we had a booking agent, I was booking tours for us. Was always the one that would advance the shows, make sure we settled up, and kept track of the books and crap like that.
Gotcha.
Uh, you know, Merch orders, and the boring but necessary stuff.
Yeah, especially for a hardcore band to stay alive. I mean, like that's all the stuff that's absolutely necessities. So for 2007, I mean that from a record collector and just like enthusiast, I would say that's probably the album that I feel is most talked about. That album. Did you at that time was that like okay, we put that out and like that took over stateside, that took over explosives, or was that just over time people started just kept falling in love with it?
I mean, when the record came out, we were all pretty excited about it, so we wanted to play the songs live. And I wouldn't say it, took over. It just, I would say, our set started to incorporate, less of the older stuff. We've never stopped playing stateside songs.
Hmm.
I don't think we've ever played a show. Well, maybe we have, but we probably have. But I'm saying it's very, any given show, we're still playing songs from that record. Uh, and is dead, and we like playing the new stuff. I mean, to be honest, the record that we most don't play live would be I Was Trying to Describe You. I mean, it's rare that we play anything from that record. Even though I quite like that record a lot.
Yeah, when I was listening to it, I think Type 1 was the song that really stuck out. And I think that was the one just in terms of like Apple and Spotify that stuck out in terms of like for charting anyway. Do you like so like now that like you've been in the band for a good bit, I would say, do you have influence over the set list or is it kind of just like still using the same system as prior?
Yeah, we'll all talk about the set list before we get together to rehearse, just hey, is there anything we haven't played in a while that everyone wants to play? And just kind of fit because we rehearse so rarely that uh everyone will kind of have to do, and we play so infrequently that basically before any time we do anything, everyone's kind of got to brush up on the song, so it helps to know what we're going to play. And then we just kind of have to also consider what kind of like what is the show that we're playing and what's the most like we basically just be like, what do people want to hear us play, and we'll try to do as much of that as possible.
Yeah, I gotcha. So I guess you have that big gap from like 2010 to 2023 in terms of new music being put out. You guys were still playing shows here and there, but what kind of sparked in 2023 or 2022 whenever you guys started like recording and what kind of sparked, hey, like I want to put out a new record and you all were like the main guy on it. You were the producer, right? Engineer as well
Oh
on it.
yeah, our drummer and I, Brett Romness, and are both, full-time audio engineers. So making a record it wasn't the challenging thing. It was getting everyone like to see it through, and just making
Hmm.
the time for it, to be honest. And getting, there would be that record took 2 years to make, and not because it took 2 years to make. It took there would be
Hmm.
sometimes 6 months straight where no one's touched it because life when you get older and careers and stuff. Um, but sorry, can you? What was the
Like
what am I answering it?
what was like
Oh,
the
the driving factor.
yeah, the spark. Like what was it like, okay, 13 years later, we want to put out a new record.
So the band, I would say we started working on a new record probably in like 2013-ish, and had pretty much a full new record recorded, minus, some vocals and stuff, but it was 90, mostly done. And then around 2020, when the record came out in 23, so probably
23.
around
Yep.
2021, I was talking to a friend of ours who was also our booking agent, and we were talking about like, you know, the record, and uh mentioned that it would be cool if we had a label to put it out, and he said, oh, I bet Pure Noise would put this out, and we were like, probably not, but like, that would be cool. And then 5 minutes later I get a screenshot of him texting Jake Round being like, do you want to do Crime and Stereo record, and him being like, fuck yeah. And then we were like, okay, so I guess we're putting out a record on Pure Noise. And then when that became something that looked like a reality, I guess we were like, do we want to put out this record that we started almost a decade ago, and finish that, or do we want to like actually start fresh with new songs that actually all feels new and fresh? And we elected to kind of shelf that record and just start from scratch, and got off to a really good start, and everything was steamrolling. And then like Christian had a baby, and Brett and I have been like just we're simultaneously both so busy doing full-time studio work that, sometimes it's hard to find time to work on your own stuff when you're constantly working on other people's. And then when I rarely, and when we do have free time, sometimes the last place we want to spend it is at work. Um,
Yeah.
so it's difficult sometimes to actually, but you know, we got off to a really strong start, and then there was a huge lull in the middle, and then I don't remember exactly how the spark got lit, but eventually we were like, we need to finish this fucking album. I think the scare was that it had been so long that like the label wasn't even gonna want it anymore. And
Yeah.
but we finally made a push to like get it done, and yeah, and we finally got it done.
Were you guys always on Pure Noise, or was that just for that release then?
Just that was our first release with them. Previously, we had done our Is Dead and Trying to Describe You with Bridge 9, and Trouble Stateside originally came out on Nitro, which was Dexter from the Offspring's label.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. It got re-released on Bridge 9 eventually, but Nitro's not really a label anymore, more of just a catalog label, but they did a bunch of like AFI releases, and yeah, it was pretty cool.
So is Dexter
Um,
like a producer and mixer, or did he just kind of own it?
no, he just kind of owned it. And I think he just wanted to have a label. And
Yeah.
yeah, I remember going to the warehouse one it was out in California, and on tour we stopped there one time, and they just let us walk around their warehouse like, you know, like basically like take whatever you want. And I was like, grabbed a few records, and yeah, I think, and then eventually the warehouse got mostly taken over by a hot sauce company he started called Gringo Bandito. And I haven't really kept tabs on any of it in a long time, to be honest.
Fair enough. I never heard of that. That's a fun name for a hot sauce company and very Dexter fitting.
Um, yeah, it was good hot sauce. I think they're still a company, and I'm pretty sure they're doing all right, but I just really don't know.
So you guys have a show coming up, right, with I Am the Avalanche?
Yeah, yeah.
As I see, like when I was like kind of looking back on like the archives, I, I would say especially from more recently, you guys definitely play with a lot of Long Island bands. You guys were on the show in March, right, with Silent Majority and Movie Life. Has you guys just kind of at this point just wanted to stick to playing with like Long Island bands? I mean, I know you guys are going to Europe and such, but stateside.
Um, I mean, we love all those bands and we love playing with them. And so it's always, easy to do things with friends. But there is also somewhat a factor of convenience involved, I guess. So we share a drummer with I Am the Avalanche and the Movie Life, who you probably noticed we do a lot of gigging with.
Yeah,
But it's like, well, why not?
that makes it easy for sure.
He Brett doesn't mind pulling double duty, which is asking a lot of someone because drums is the hardest job, the most work up there on stage, other than being the front person of a band. And so getting that sweaty, but he's like, I'm already going to be fucking sweaty and exhausted, so why not just do it twice? Um,
Yeah, I
but
respect people that can do the double duty. But like the most recent one that I saw was Jay Way playing guitar for Shattered Realm and then being a frontman for Bayway. Like and especially like that kind of music too. And he's basically, I would say like doing a lot of backup vocals too. I don't, I'm not really musically gifted. This is my gateway into music, but I don't think I could play it, let alone 2 30-minute sets.
I don't think I could see myself like I would love to have be able to have next open a Crime and Stereo show, but I don't think I could you know I do a lot of singing live with Crime and Stereo, and I don't think I could do the two things in the same day.
Yeah. So you guys are going to Europe in like October, right? With Carmen
Hmm.
Stereo. What was
Yep.
kind of that's a pretty big bill and it's a pretty cool thing. It's like Joyce Manor, Hot Water Music. I know a band that I interviewed, Catbite, was playing on something similar to that. What was like kind of like the introduction to going overseas to playing? Were you guys just approached for it, or do you guys kind of put your name out there for it?
Oh no, we were approached for it. and it seemed really cool. And we kind of have this mindset, um, in a similar way that I think Audley had mentioned in your interview with him of like sometimes when we go somewhere and play a show, I'm like, well, I don't know if we'll play here again, or and we've been offered a lot of stuff like that through the years that we've turned down because it's hard to go away for 2 weeks when you have families and businesses to run. And we're all in our 40s, and we got the offer to do that tour, and we were kind of like, if we say no to this might we might like if we keep saying no to this shit, eventually no one's going to ask anymore.
Yeah.
And um so we were like, let's make it happen. And so we're making it happen.
Have you guys played a lot of Europe stuff? Or is
uh
this
in the 20 years I've been in the band, we've done mainland once. We've done the UK probably a dozen times, but
okay?
we've done very little shows in the mainland, and the band had gone once prior to me joining. So in like the entire of Crime and Stereo, the band's only played on mainland Europe twice. So and I think the last time was 2009.
Oh, really?
Um,
That's a big gap.
yeah, yeah. So hopefully, I mean, the lineups are awesome. And in between all the festival shows, we're doing club shows with the Feeder, which should also be awesome. Uh, and the festival is cool. I'm like curious to see what it actually looks like in practice, because it's not like what you think of when you think of like a European festival where there's like different stages and everything's in one space. It's like kind of structured almost from what I gather, like Gainesville Fest, where it's a bunch of different bars in the same neighborhood and you just
Hmm.
walk from venue to venue, but it's like just happening in the middle of the city.
That's cool. That's a logistic nightmare for anywhere stateside, but that's cool that they can do that over there.
Yeah, cities are a lot more like condensed into like pedestrian areas there. So like in London, it's all in one, small neighborhood. And I think the farthest between two shows walking distance is like between two venues is like less than 10 minutes.
Oh, that's cool.
But I didn't really look into the logistics of the other ones, but my wife is flying over for the London show, so she was looking into like, oh, what hotels should we stay in and stuff, and like what's the proximity to things, and
Do,
everything's pretty close.
do you have a band that you're kind of looking forward to seeing or playing on the same bill with, I guess you could say? You've,
I'm honestly incredibly excited for the London club show, where it's the Feeder, Modern Life is War, and us, because I love Modern Life is War, and I don't think we've ever played with them. Outside of like maybe a festival billing, but we've never shared like a club stage with them to my recollection.
do you prefer playing like that kind of like smaller venues then?
Yes, I think it is more what we're suited for as far as like a crowd, and playing outdoors is always weird.
Yeah.
I don't think that'll ever not be weird, but it's also awesome sometimes. But yeah, it's a different vibe than a club show. Playing when the sun is up is just weird.
Yeah, that's fair.
Uh, we've played festivals where I can't even see the LEDs on my guitar tuning pedal, and I'm just like, fuck it.
Hope for the best.
Yeah.
So you had a great, you guys, Crime and Stereo has been great. You have a producing or recording studio, Soundacres. What kind of got you into that? Like making that your full-time career?
I mean, I could give a lot of the credit to our drummer Brett, to be honest with you. He was, and my wife for supporting, me quitting a good union gig to, do something like this. But Brett, our drummer, really was the person who kind of convinced me to uh quit my day job and, take a leap.
Was this recently then, or or it's been a good bit of years, right? Because you worked with Hot Mulligan, I saw on some early stuff, and
Yeah, I mean, it's probably 10 years ago. But I remember we were over in the UK playing Slam Dunk Festival and just dicking around in the hotel one morning, drinking coffee downstairs, waiting, I think, for the ride to the festival and just shooting the shit about life and work. And I just, mentioned, I was like, man, you've got my dream job. If I could do anything, I would, want to do what you do. And he was just basically like, you should come work with me. And it took 6 months, and I mean, made some studio visits up there to check it out. But I remember the first time I was working full time in the I was in a elevator union in New York that dealt with like service and maintenance of like elevators in New York City, and it was like a I was in the electricians union, and it was like a good career to have for someone like myself, and free healthcare and all that stuff. But I went up one weekend. He was like, just come up one weekend and hang out, when you're off. And I went up, well, for a session, and I was just like, oh fuck, I love this. And it took like some planning and time, but my wife ended up getting a job offer in Philadelphia, uh for what was a good job for her, and also in a city that was a lot lower cost of living than New York. And so we moved from Brooklyn to Philly. I quit my union job and went and started, working with and learning from Brett, and kind of and help anything he was doing for, that first couple of years. I was right there, learning and helping out as much as I could. Eventually started doing my own records. Spent 3 or 4 years making my own records out of that studio. And then eventually my wife, and I were kind of sick of not being together all the time. She had moved from London to America to get married to me. And then we moved to Philadelphia. And then I started spending 2 to 3 weeks a month sleeping on the couch of a studio 2.5 hours away.
Mhm.
And it's like, yeah, she was like, uh, figure out a way to like be home more. I felt like I was still on tour in my 30s, and we found a property to build Soundacres, and in 2019 I started building this studio and finished building it in January 2020, and been rocking out of here ever since. And I still do actually work up at the barbershop with Brett from time to time on some projects. I'll actually be heading up there next week, because we're co-producing a record where we're recording it between the two studios, and that happens a few times a year.
Did
But
did you have a goal in mind? Like you wanted, like your end goal was to own a studio, or was it more like this is my out from being in a union job and being something that I'm more passionate about, and it just kind of worked out that way?
I didn't ever, no, I wouldn't say there was ever an end goal. But I think there was also this fear. I, woke up one day and was just kind of like, well, I've been at this job for 3 years, and if I do 22 more years, then I can get this pension that everyone seems to think is so great. And I was like, well, what if I'm dead in 20 years and I just spent the rest of, all the good years I had left working to enjoy a time that may never exist?
Hmm.
And I was like, well, I don't want to live the rest of my, I don't want to, spend the next couple decades hoping for, some future that might not exist. And I'm just going to throw caution to the wind and, try to live a life that feels more fulfilling. And um, I very much love what I do. And I put, probably way too much of myself into it. Uh, but I feel extremely fulfilled every day.
When did you start? Like, how did you kind of team up with Hot Mulligan? Because I would say that's
Um,
probably one of the bigger bands that you've produced for.
Yeah, I mean they've just gotten so big. It's wild to see, to like watch. I'm very happy for, to see someone, getting that kind of mainstream attention in this scene. Um, but I met them because their drummer Brandon was also playing in a band called Kayak Jones, and I was doing their stuff.
Okay.
And so it just kind of was like, well, kind of they mentioned they wanted to come do, Hot Mulligan as well. And then we did that record. You know, we made a few records since then. And Brett still does their new stuff. Um, they have a new record coming out, I think in November.
Yeah, something like that. I
Uh,
saw. They've been putting out a good amount of music recently. I think they put out a record last year too, if I'm not wrong. 2023 or 2024, I know they put out a record too.
yeah, I mean, they work so hard and they're just constantly either, touring, writing or recording. Um, and that's like the cycle of being in a full-time band like that. You just got to constantly be putting stuff out.
Do you have a like record that either like you really that you've worked on that you absolutely love, or just one that kind of like sticks out of like, okay, like I'm doing this. This has been like my passion and it showed on that record.
I think there's so many. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm very rarely not involved in the compositions of the records that I produce and record to some degree. I mean, and that varies, but I there, it's very common for whole new songs to get written in the studio with bands while I'm, making them with them. And so it's very easy to get attached to a lot of things, I guess. And so the answer, I think, uh, that would be a long answer.
Fair
Um,
enough.
but I can say there are records that I like that I thought were going to like change, change bands' lives, and with that just completely fell on deaf ears. Um, and that always sucks when you're like, oh my God, this is the next thing. Everyone's gonna fucking freak out about this. And then it could be for so many different reasons, it just doesn't happen for that artist, and that's crushing.
Yeah. Do you find it, I guess, harder on your end? Like, do you try to have like a different approach then, like when you're producing and stuff, or just try to not think about all like the bad blows and just keep going with what you're doing? Because obviously a lot of records that you've produced, when I was looking at your discography, did great.
Um, I mean, I want everything to do great. And like the reality is sometimes making a great record is only half of what it takes to make a band successful. And there's so many other factors that go along with making good music.
Hmm.
And it's like some bands are just bad at being a band. And you have to be good at being a band also. You have to kind of have all your ducks in a row with getting a band to a point where it's a sustainable career. And sometimes making great music isn't actually enough.
Yeah,
So
it's like no co if there's no cohesiveness, it's not going to work at all. And especially recording wise, I'm sure you've seen bands fight or whatever over that kind of stuff.
I've experienced some uncomfortable situations. They're few and far in between, but um yeah, sometimes bands get into arguments and you have to kind of take a step back and be like, this is, maybe I'll just go next door in my house and just check back in later. But I've never had anything crazy happen, I suppose. But there will sometimes be creative differences in the studio between members of the band with, the direction a song is taking. Some people will get very attached to their demos and not be willing to, you know, be open-minded about something, while other members of a group will be wanting to do said thing.
Hmm.
So sometimes it takes a little bit of time to win people's trust in that regard. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I think I've kind of got off on a tangent there.
No, you're good. You're good. I want to dive into your new band NEKS that just put out two singles. I know you were talking to me about like this was kind of four or five of an older band. You mind just kind of getting into what came upon of you joining NEKS or creating NEKS?
Yeah. So yes, four of the five of us used to play in a band together called Daytrader that was, briefly pretty full-time thing that kind of ended abruptly and probably before its time. We had broken up 3 months after putting out our first LP on Rise Records, uh, and canceled a ton of touring and stuff. But for the most part, we're all still pretty good friends, and for years had just talked about wanting to do some kind of music together. And we've gone on a lot of like just trips and stuff over the years. We'll rent an Airbnb somewhere and all just hang out and do stuff. We're like, well, let's get together, two and our buddy Wes is also who is the fifth member of NEKS, is also part of that group that we would kind of just go on trips with and do stuff. And we're like, well, let's just like, instead of going somewhere else, like two of the five of us own recording studios. Let's get together at one of said places and just see what happens. And so everyone flew in here for a week, and we were just like, we're just gonna hang out and make some music. And we're like, all right, so we'll start a band and see what happens. And I mean, at the beginning of that week, I did not think we were starting a hardcore band. I thought we were going to be starting like an emo rock band of some kind, especially because they were like, Gary, you'll sing. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then we just started like kind of jamming and going through everyone's like collection of demos, and started to be like, oh, like this song's really cool. Well, that idea is really cool. And I just realized all of a sudden we were starting like a heavy band. And so basically that week we ended up, in the first like couple days, we ended up like demoing out like 20 different songs that kind of spanned a larger range of genres, and then narrowed it down, uh record and then recorded drums for a bunch of them, and then just kind of left it there. And then our guitar players, Matt and Wes owns a studio out in Salt Lake City where they both live. Over the next few months, they recorded guitars for all the songs. Our bass player, Robert, also an audio engineer, recorded his bass parts at his home studio in Denver. And from there, it was kind of just like emailing stuff back and forth. Then once the music was done, I, did the vocals and, mixed everything. And all of a sudden, I'm singing in a hardcore band.
Have you ever done like heavier vocals like that prior?
No, to be honest, it terrified me even thinking about doing it. I didn't know if it was gonna be even something I could do.
Yeah.
But then, few beers and no one else in the room, just start screaming and see what happens. And yeah, it worked out all right.
So this album that's coming out, it's coming out in September, Point of No Return. Did you guys you said that you guys had it's a 9 song album, I believe. Did you guys have like times just like cutting songs and maybe like for a future album, or like your goal is to continue making music, obviously with Next and seeing where it goes? Or was it more of a passion project, this kind of start?
I mean, the initial idea was just to get together with some buds and hang out and make some music and see what happened. We made a record. I think we'd all like to gig on it, even as logistically difficult as that may be, because no two of us even live in, well, we're spread out between four different cities in two different countries. But I think now that I don't think we even knew what the band sounded like until we had actually finished making the record. And now I think that we are like, okay, we started a band and this is what it sounds like. I'd very much like to write more music now that we kind of have an idea of what we're doing, because
Hmm.
we truly had no idea when we started making the record. And I mean, we've talked about, getting together sometime in the first part of next year to maybe play some shows and kind of do the same thing where we, flesh out some songs, record drums, and then everyone goes their separate ways and we finish the record.
So like for Next, like how did you guys kind of come up with that name?
It is impossible to find a band name that hasn't already been used, and so we just started looking outside of the normal English dictionary. And our bass player Robert sent a screenshot of like a Wikipedia page for Next, and it was just, the description of the word is an old like Roman word for death, slaughter, and we're like, okay, it's not English, it hasn't been used, and naming a band sucks. You think you got a cool band name, and then you go like type it into the internet, and there's already 17 bands with that name. Um,
That's fair. I remember my buddy Ryan from a band. Yeah, I think it was Ryan from Football Head. Um he was like, yeah, this guy, like one guy from Russia had the name Football Head, and he was like, fuck it, we're just gonna go for it and hope that he never sees it or that he's over it. And sure enough, he stopped making music. But I'm sure make like that's a that's not what I thought Next would stand for at all. Death or Slaughter. Like that's not the vibe that I got at all from that name. That's funny though, like the little tie-in. So
yeah, go on. Sorry.
I was just gonna say like aesthetically then, did you guys kind of have that in mind? Is there anyone in the band that kind of does like the graphics and stuff, or do you guys outsource for that?
So we did have somebody uh a fella named Jordan Talley who goes on the internet at More on God. He did we direct the photos that's for the single cover and the album cover when it comes out are actually photos of his, and he did the the layout and photos. But we were talking about what we wanted the visuals for the band to look like, and Matt had mentioned, hey, I think this guy Jordan's stuff would be perfect. And I went and looked at his stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, this is exactly the kind of like he just takes such amazing photos that just kind of have like this depressing despair to them. And I was like, this is exactly like what we're looking for. And then the what I thought was the album cover, I think is I just love it.
I love
But
I'm looking at it right now. It's a great picture.
but yeah, that's a photograph taken by him, and we just licensed it from him and had him do the layout. And yeah, I can't see us using anyone else for any future releases because I just love his photos so much.
You put out two singles, The Land of Plenty and the Rubicon. When you guys put them out, like The Land of Plenty for me, it was like right at you. Like there's vocals within like the first like 3 or 4 seconds. But for the Rubicon, it's a little bit more of like a slower, more traditional build-up song. Was there any thought process in terms of the two songs that you were going to be putting out? Or did you guys just know that you were going to put out two songs?
We just kind of I think we all agreed that Land of Plenty was like a good song to put out, as one of the first two to just kind of uh show what we were doing. And I think the fact that we like the fact that it does kind of get going right away, so there's not like a waiting to be like, all right, what is this? Where's this going kind of thing. And then I think we all had different opinions on what the second song should be. But we were like, well, why don't we just make it the next song on the record? And so these are tracks 3 and 4 from the record, and then the rest of it will all come out when the rest of it comes out, which is I think already out by the time this is out.
Yeah, it will be. So for like you guys are putting out a 9 song album. I feel like typically when people go into like the hardcore scene, like that's kind of unheard of. It's more of like, like a 4 song EP. Was it just because you guys were able to produce so many songs so quickly that you were like, okay, we're just gonna throw out a large album instead of going like the EP route, the testing route?
We actually tracked drums for 11 songs and only ended up finishing 9, but I
Oh,
think
okay.
the goal was to have a body of work long enough to consist of what might be our set length at any shows we play in the time frame in which we are playing shows with said record out. It's 9 songs, but I think the whole thing is maybe 24 minutes long.
Yeah.
So we were just like, we just want to have a set's worth of music. And I mean, for a hardcore band, 25 minutes is all you need.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because your vocals are pretty heavy on it. When you were this was the first since Crime and Stereo, like this was the band that you took over that lead vocals role. Have you ever been a frontman prior?
Oh no, I didn't. I didn't ever really think that this would be a thing. Because terrible at talking to people, and I my stage presence will probably be questionable. But I mean, I'm 40 years old and I wanted to do something with my friends that allowed me to spend more time with them. And if yelling about shit that pisses me off is what gets me to spend more time with my friends, then happy to do it.
That's a great answer. That honestly might be the answer of the show. I like that one a lot. And I feel like that's like kind of what hardcore is, especially now, like just talking about stuff, especially in this state of where we're at, of things that just piss people off. Did you see like a big difference in terms of scene from Crime and Stereo to Next, like where music is now in terms of like our little scene, the alternative music scene?
I don't know if the scene has changed or if I've gotten older. 'Cause I don't know, because I definitely don't feel like I'm as boots on the ground as I used to be. I don't go to as many shows as I used to, partly because I live in the middle of nowhere. But I think the scene is more or less what it's always been, younger bands taking over the torch and, the younger generations keeping it moving and still making space for us old people sometimes. I'm just one of the old people now.
Roles reversed a little bit.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I think the scene is alive and well. I think maybe some of the musical styles have changed, but that's just like the trends in anything, fashion or, whatever.
Is there any like bands that kind of stick out, particular like younger bands that you look forward to seeing like kind of what they do? I mean, from Long Island, at least for me, like the talk of town right now is Koyo. Like they just played a house show that just absolutely killed it. Is there any bands that kind of stick out anywhere in the world that kind of stick out for you?
Particularly in the hardcore scene,
Yeah, or just
or
alternative, whatever.
well, there are a lot of bands I'm excited about. I mean, Koyo's definitely taken the reins over for like the younger generation of Long Island, and it's awesome to see that. I feel like a lot of the newer hardcore bands I've been listening to are also just the older bands, or bands started, but like I think my favorite newer hardcore band is Love Letter, which is Quinn from Verse and J Moss from Defeater starting, but I love that record. And honestly, I'm open for recommendations for younger hardcore bands that I should be listening to, because I feel like I'm just listening to the same bands I've been listening to for the last 20 years.
Fair enough. Was there like wait, when you got into hardcore, was there like an album that like stuck with you and hit you hard?
I mean, Silent Majority, Life of a Spectator, and Backup Plan, Dearest Whomever, I think are like the two most, the two records that would be, in my Desert Island CD collection from Long Island hardcore.
Silent
Um,
Majority was definitely the answer I get the most, I feel like.
Silent Majority is responsible for so much more than people give them credit for. And maybe people do give them credit, and some people give them credit, but they were probably the most influential band from my generation, more or less, I would say, out of the hardcore scene. And I just always loved the Backup Plan. A lot of that, that style of like Dearest Whomever is like to me like a perfect hardcore full length. It's 12 songs and probably like 18 or 19 minutes long, and it's just great. And those would be the two for me from Long Island that I think would be the most influential.
And I'll leave you with one more question. Overall, like what's your next step with Next? Is it just promoting the album or
Um, yeah, I think we just kind of want to put the record out, and hopefully, the whole reason we started the band was again just to like, do stuff with our friends, which is, this also the driving factor behind Crime and Stereo's continued existence. It's because without having that occasional show, or the desire to work on music, or these people are all my best friends, and it's easy to lose touch if you don't have these things that force you to all come together. um and so I think with Next, it's the same exact things I'm trying to do with Crime and Stereo, which is gives us a reason to keep the group chat going and to get together to practice or to do that show. And next, I think the goal is, all right, now we've made a record, let's play some shows. And it might not be the easiest thing to pull off with all of us living in different places, but it's like, well, who cares? We don't, if the we will spend money traveling and flying to do things to spend time together, as long as the show is going to be cool. Like, I don't want to all fly to somewhere to play a show to 20 people, but if we can get on like some cool festivals, or we get asked to do like a small run with like some cool band, it's like, well, let's just fucking do it, because otherwise we'll never see each other.
Fair enough. Well, I appreciate you a ton for coming on, Gary.
No, thanks so much for having me.
All right, guys, I'm gonna leave a bunch of links in below. Make sure at this point, NEKS's album, Point of No Return, will be out, so there'll be a link for that. Also, check out his Soundacres. There's a ton of cool pictures and just history and all of Gary's work on there. And yeah, thank you so much, Gary. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll talk soon.